When Colombia got played out.
How did Colombia get played out?
Oh, they had the technology, couldn't get nothing across. Boats were getting grabbed, planes were getting grabbed, the technology. Then I started growing it in Jamaica. And you got to remember, once you got a grow started and it's set up right, you can bring in a crop every 6 to 8 weeks. So then you got to sell it. Then you got to cure it, you got to dry it, then you have to trim it, which is a job, major job. Some of them people have dozens and dozens of people work in the fields. And there wasn't a lot of action out of Jamaica at the time. You know, there wasn't too many growers like me that time, but a lot of times when I put in the crop, it was already sold. It was already bought. So you become a broker, and then they bring their plane in. I tell them, make sure your pilot goes there, you fly him in commercially, so he checks out where he's going to land that plane. And the worst thing you can do is come during the rainy season, because if you don't check that ground, if that ground's not hard enough and that plane comes in, you're going to get bogged down and it'll spin out.
Is the tricky part getting the weed out of Jamaica?
Oh, that's always the hardest part.
Why is that the hardest part?
First of all, you got to know what you're doing. You got to load the right weight, okay? And you don't want a plane that looks like it's going to travel a long distance. So you had to deal with, I used to deal with single engine turbos with extra bladder. Extra bladder means it's extra fuel tanks. Because if you put 1,000 pounds on one of them, you got to be nuts to fly from Jamaica to Miami. But they didn't bother those small planes. They're always looking for the bigger plane. Back then, we had some real sophisticated walkie-talkies, and they had a range about 10 miles. There was, like I said, there was no cell phones, or hardly any pay phones, especially when you're in the interior. I used walkie-talkies. So I'm with this girl. She was a model for a high-end photo shoot. I get a call over my walkie-talkie that there's been an accident. You get out of here because there's going to be there's going to be killings. And I says, well, was my name mentioned? He said, that's why we called you. Your name was mentioned. I said, well, do not kill anybody. Do not. I'll be there. So the Jamaican police, who they were brokering this deal with, they had a bulldozer. So in the plane, you have an accident on private ground, what are you going to do? Call a tow truck to get your plane, move it to an airport, you bury it. So I get there, they already have the hole dug, okay? The plane's already pushed in the hole. Now they got these 3 guys hogtied and kneeling at the hole. They're going to get buried alive. And
the Jamaican police have them hogtied?
Yeah, the Jamaican police. So I said, his name was Sergeant White. I was dealing with him for a while. I said, what are you doing? He said, first of all, they all had guns. You know, in Jamaica, you could caught with a gun back then. It's a life sentence. There was no guns on the island. One guy's saying he's a DEA. The other guy, he's mumbling your name. And I said, whoa, then you're not killing these guys. So, and I know what's coming next. Okay, you don't want them dead, then you got to pay. You got to pay us. So I had to pay close to $8,000. I made them put them in a shed, and they were 3 DEA agents.
Three DEA agents?
3 DEA agents.
And
one, no FBI, I think. 1 FBI, 2 DEA, I think. It finally came out at one of my co-defendants got a retrial. It finally came out. They had one of them on the stand, and he said it wasn't for George Martorano, I'd be dead. I get these guys off the island, and that night I went to had dinner with the model, and I got to go into the interior to do another deal. Matter of fact, I don't know if anybody ever heard of the Blue Mountains in Jamaica. There's a certain tribe that's been living in those Blue Mountains for hundreds of years. They're called the Moroccans. One of the big guys, one of the like chieftains in the Moroccans really liked me, and he had some weed that he wanted me to take. So we go into the interior to do the deal with the Moroccans, and I see them. We're in this field, and we got our trucks there, and I see them. It was just like in a safari. They're coming down the side of the mountain. It must have been 10 of them. And they all got They got ropes around their heads and their shoulders, and everyone had a 50-pound barrel filled with weed. And this whole caravan is coming down the side of the mountain. And all of a sudden, over this other hill, comes the army. I turned around. He's running faster than me, Sergeant White, in his uniform with his cops. They're running faster than me. I said, oh, what's this? I said, I thought it was all taken care of. He said, you took care of me. I didn't take care of them. These are soldiers, and they're shooting. They figured they got ripped, they're getting cheated, you know. So we're running. I hit a hill. It was a steep hill, and I must have rolled down 100 yards. I rolled right onto a little blacktop road, and it was the film shoot with the model. She looked at me, and I looked at her, and she's calling me Jimmy. I used to change my names all the time, Jimmy, Joe, John. I never used George. She says, Jimmy, is that you? And I know I got to run. I know they're going to be coming over that mountain. Sure enough, I hear shots. They're coming, and they're going to be coming down that. And I says, listen, I says, all I can tell you is run. Don't worry about nothing but run. Okay? And I started running. I turned to my right. Who's running right beside me? The model. She's running just as much, but I knew the waterways. Jamaica, you got to know how to, in the interior, you got to know how to get around. And a lot of the Jamaicans, they get around by using rivers, streams. And we got on the raft, and I got her to a safe place, and that was it. I never saw her again. Put her off the raft, never saw her again.